Hey everyone, welcome back to the Hilton True Wealth Podcast. I'm Mark Miller, manager of the Hilton Family Office, and today we'll be discussing a different topic, but still related to wealth creation, success habits of the top 1%. So high performance habits drive success across wealth, business, health, and life. And in true wealth, we talk a lot about it's about balance. But high performers really, they're not defined by talent or by luck, or you see what you might consider a high performer, and that might be somebody famous and they just, happen to be lucky to get there. They're really defined by disciplined habits that are executed consistently over time. So wealth is a byproduct of how you operate daily, your habits, discipline, standards, values in life. And more importantly, those habits, they show up across business, investing, health, relationships, and even leadership. So most people, and especially in the country we live in, the United States, tend to look for shortcuts, chase motivational things on a daily basis so they can, quote, feel better. And they're really focusing on short-term results, which is the wrong way to go about it. So high performers build systems, they rely on habits, so they're not driven by emotion on a day-to-day basis. A very wealthy individual that I've worked with a number of years ago used to say that things are never as good as they seem, but they're never as bad as they seem either. So you might as well just stay kind of at a level emotional state and not get bent out of shape one way or the other. We tend to, as human beings, we want to focus on all the positive things, right? And the good things, and we wish it was like that all the time. But and then we're happy and we're like very motivated to do things, but when the slightest thing goes wrong, we flip out, or we're like, oh, I can't function today because of this or this that happened. So, but success is not about individual events. It's about a set of repeatable behaviors that you can elicit and actually make happen, in a sense, on a daily basis. And that's how high performers generally get to that place where they can accomplish a lot of things in a very short period of time, but more they tend to be focused on a little bit longer term. So the gap between where you are today and where you want to be, it's not about knowledge. It's not about knowing the things to do. It's simply about execution. Most people know what to do. That's why on a daily basis, you might be nagging yourself, gosh, I should have done this, or I should have made it to the gym, or I shouldn't have eaten that piece of cake, or, whatever it is. We know the right things to do. If you don't, by the way, and you're listening to this, just go on to social media, YouTube, whatever, and just look up, hey, what are the positive things I should be doing on a daily basis to help me grow as an individual? So everyone generally knows what to do, though. And it's about, quote, hard work, be disciplined, be consistent, obviously. But very few can really execute those things on a daily basis. So that's the difference between, and again, I don't say this to be talking down to anybody or anything like that. That's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to give you the facts and really how it works. But kind of people that have average lives and don't really achieve that much tend to shy away from executing. They don't want to do those things because they don't feel up to it, so to speak. So, but high performance isn't built on your motivation to do something on a daily basis. Again, it's built on habits. So today we're breaking down the habits that actually separate those high performers, not theory, but real behaviors that show up on a daily and a weekly basis. So what do people generally think? They think because we see all of the famous people, the sports athletes, the entertainers, all that are doing these big, great things. And a lot of people think, well, they're just talented, or they're super intelligent and smart, or maybe, here's a big one, they got lucky, or they had the opportunity that I don't have, so to speak. But this is what it actually generally is. Now, that's not to say that some of those things don't happen that way, but mostly it's because those individuals had consistency, discipline. They had certain standards, and often those are standards that they're meeting and trying to fulfill themselves. They're not trying to fill somebody else's standards or what somebody else might do in a certain circumstance. And here's a big one. They tend to execute well under pressure. And that's what makes them a high performer. So when things don't go right, instead of falling apart and letting their emotions overwhelm them, they tend to be still calm. Like I mentioned before, my friend that says, hey, you should try to keep your emotions as even as you possibly can. And by the way, high performers aren't perfect, but they tend to perform, they tend to execute more than, say, average people might, because they mess up, they screw up in their lives at times, but generally they'll do it quickly, and then they'll get them right back into a state of, I need to perform, I need to execute. So high performers win because they're doing the boring things better than usually everybody else. So here's a great example. Actually, I just watched a documentary the other day about Olympic athletes. So did you know generally an Olympic athlete, to get at that level and to medal, it's generally a 15-year or longer process in their lives where they're literally almost 24/7 doing all the boring, mundane things to build their skills. So I'm not saying that you need to be like an Olympic athlete. I mean, that's definitely rarefied air, but I'm just giving you an example of in general, high performers tend to take their habits kind of to the next level. And they tend to not look at it as, oh, this is a terrible grind, this is awful, I don't want to do this. They tend to make that a discipline, and then it becomes kind of a routine and something they do automatically. So, but anyone can, work hard for a week. And again, Olympic athlete is a kind of an extreme example, but can you work hard and can you keep your nose to the grindstone for a month, for 2 months, for 3 months, for a year? And if you can, that's generally what separates those that have great success from those that kind of live lives where they don't accomplish a lot. They just kind of just go through the motions on a daily basis. So, and then also, anyone can be motivated temporarily and have great feelings and say, hey, I'm ready to go do this. I want to go to the gym today. I feel fine to go to the gym today, but gosh, I don't know if I want to go tomorrow, because you wake up the next day, I'm a little sore from my workout, that type of thing. So, very few stay disciplined long term, and that is the key, that they have a little bit more long term framework and time frame in their mind, as opposed to just a week period of time or a day period of time. And then they tend to execute when it's uncomfortable. So they rely on motivation I'm going to say people that are, not at the high performing level tend to act again when they feel like it. There tends to be inconsistent behavior. There tend to be on roller coasters, and are just again riding those ups and downs of the roller coasters, whatever life throws at them. So, an important key takeaway is if your results depend on your mood all the time, you'll never be consistent. And if you can't get some consistency with what you're doing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and a monthly basis, then again, it's going to be tougher to have that success. Another thing that less performers tend to do, again, be very reactive. Life is kind of chaotic. And we all know and we understand that life has its ups and downs. When the ups are there, hey, everything's great. But when the downs are there, totally overreact. I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe, even though, and again, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, even though that thing that just happened to them has happened to millions of people over the last centuries, the same exact thing, but they feel like it's just their burden, and it brings them down into an emotional state that then puts them in a place where they're not performing anymore. They're vegging out, they're scrolling on their phone for hours at a time, they're streaming on television just to escape from whatever that feeling is. And there is no intentional design there. Again, it's just kind of in going with the motions. So an expansion of that is maybe waking up without a plan or rolling out of bed at, 9 or 10 in the morning and see what today has to offer, and see what comes my way. Well, there's no intention there and there's no plan there. So they'll respond to emails. They'll be prone to distractions. They'll be every little text that comes in, they're going to immediately go to their phone and take them away from whatever they're doing, whatever maybe project they're doing, or whatever work they're trying to fulfill or goal that they even have. So there's zero control over time. One of the things that I talk about all the time and that I work with some of my clients on is, hey, how are you spending your time? What does a typical week look like for you? And often it's very chaotic and there's things going on all over the place. Now, again, like I said, this isn't about perfection. It really isn't, because we're all human beings. We all have our ups and downs, but high performance tend to have a good amount of structure to their day, to their week, to their months, to their year. So the other thing about people that are less performers is they tend to lack clear standards. They have, and this is, and we're all very prone to this, especially in the living in the United States of America, because realistically, per capita, we are probably the wealthiest country that ever existed on the face of the earth, numbers wise. And we tend to be, hey, having kind of, hey, it's good enough mindset because we're comfortable. So it's good enough, so we're not striving for anything. Again, we're just kind of just going through the motion. And consequently, then there's no defined expectations on ourselves and the people that are around us, our environment. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So here's a key insight. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your standards. And think about that. So if you have low standards, your mind and the energy that you have and everything will adapt to those standards. And if the standards are very low, then that's how you'll live your daily life. So here's another key thing too, is there is sometimes no accountability. There's no tracking, there's no measurement, there's no feedback loop. So if you have none of those things, if you're not measuring yourself to any standards or anything, then again, it's just going to be living your daily life. And short-term thinking, they tend to fall into, hey, let's just see what happens today or maybe this week, and that's about as far as it goes. And they're not thinking out. High performers tend to think out, hey, if I'm doing certain behaviors, how is that going to affect my life a year from now, 5 years, even 10 years from now? And then, so consequently, since they want faster results and those results don't happen, and generally great results don't happen in the short term, then they just quit when results lag. So again, they're looking at outcomes. Well, you can't have very good outcomes for the most part unless you put some time, effort into those outcomes. So if you're just judging it over a week, here's a great example. And this is proven that people that start businesses, 90% of them fail within the first year. Do you want to know the biggest reason why they fail? Is because people quit. They stop doing the actions that they were doing within 8 months or 9 months because they're not getting those results, even though they're probably most likely moving in the right direction and doing the right things. Then if they would have just waited another year and kept doing those things, then they would have had great success. So that's a really important distinction. And I think that's a good analogy. So, and I see it all the time because I work with a lot of business owners. The successful ones I've worked with have worked really hard for a number of years. And guess what? They didn't quit. They didn't quit early on because they didn't have results, because they had a mindset, hey, I'm looking out 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years, and then let me make a judgment here, whether I should quit or not. So high performers operate in kind of just a completely different mindset. So let's jump into the core high performance habits. Habit number 1 is generally having structured days and intentional scheduling. Putting things on their schedule, sticking to that schedule, not just winging it on a daily basis, and kind of having a somewhat of a schedule and kind of know what the things are that you need to do that day. But they generally control their time very well. They calendar well, and they tend to kind of do a lot of the same things on a daily and a weekly basis over and over again. And those things are still on their schedule, and they're constantly looking at that schedule to make sure that they're hitting the particular time frames that they have on their schedule. So this is an interesting one. So what does this look like? So generally, the planned mornings are huge. Years ago, and I didn't really, until I was about 45, 50, really start developing some basics of high performance habits, even though I've been very fortunate. I've had success over many decades. It really didn't start to become very cognitive to me until I was about 45 or 50. And then when I was about 50, I started developing more habits that I could see that were stacking into more success. But I actually read a book a number of years ago called The Miracle Morning, which started kind of a whole craze, and realized how powerful the morning is and how the morning sets the tone for the rest of the day. And it seems simple. But what time you wake up, what particular things you do every morning, all of that can set the tone for not just the day, but then start again stacking day upon day upon day, and success upon success upon success. So specific focus blocks during the day are important too, where I'm going to focus on this project or that project, or this is when I return my emails, or this is when I return texts, or this is when, and by the way, I mentioned earlier, there's nothing the matter with, streaming things online or series or watching movies or even being on your phone. But it's when those types of things are so prone to negative habits. And it's best to do blocks of that. It's best to do like in the evening, if you like certain shows, I'm going to do this for 1 hour. I'm going to watch this show for 1 hour. Or I'm going to be on my phone for 2 hours today rather than 7 or 8 hours, which is like the American average. There's also, in this area, there's defined priorities. So high performers tend to define what their most important things are in life, and they'll focus on those things. And the mundane, the minor things that aren't pushing them and moving them forward, they may still do some of those things, but they're not a big part of their lives. So here's an important distinction. If you don't control your day, then the day is going to control you, period. That's how it works. And that's how the naturally things work in the world. So you have to take control. I tend to believe the mornings are super important, and that they tend to, if I have a great morning and I've done all the things I needed to do in the morning, then my day tends to be more controllable. So habit number 2, non-negotiable discipline. So everybody hates the word discipline. I say that, not everybody, because people that are really high performers realize that the core and the structure of their performance is having little disciplines. So here's the key distinction of what I mentioned earlier. You show up regardless of what your mood is. So you may be having a terrible morning, you may not feel good, or terrible day or whatever, but you're going to show up and you're going to do those things you told yourself that you would do to live up to your standards, not somebody else's standards. And you even execute when your energy is low. So you still do those things. So here's a great example, workouts. So it's very hard to be consistent in working out and here's a key distinction too. To develop a habit, you literally, if you just do it for 30 to 90 days and you do it consistently, then it doesn't become, oh my gosh, I've got to have this discipline or else. It becomes a routine, it becomes a habit. And then what's strange about it is you start looking forward to that because you understand the outcome. You have priorities and you understand the outcome that it's going to produce. Another example is key work tasks. Everybody has those. Everybody has things that they have to do on a daily basis. So again, you block those times out, you get it done. Stephen Covey used to talk about first things first. So usually that means the hardest things first. You get those things done and get them out of the way, and then they become somewhat routine, and then they're not so much drudgery on a daily basis. So I think it's really important to understand that developing these habits, you have to do them long enough, not short term, but you have to do them over enough time to where then they become, you realize you look forward to them and you're excited to do them. And then when you miss them, you're like, I've got to get back to them because I know that those things produce positive outcomes in my life. So another distinction, discipline replaces motivation. So doing those things and disciplining yourself to do those things replaces, do I feel good today? Do I feel bad today? Am I indifferent? Whatever it is. So habit number 3, extreme ownership. So we're living in a world now where everyone wants to blame everyone else for what happens in their life. Now, that's a little bit over exaggeration, but I think that's the culture we live in. And on a high level, we can see it in our political world. So Democrats want to blame Republicans. Republicans want to blame Democrats, liberals, and conservatives. They all want to blame each other for the terrible outcomes and how bad everything. And that's why my life is not going well because these people are there and all of that. And, when you really step back and look at it, That's ridiculous. The reality is high performers take responsibility for their own lives and their own outcomes. It's not the market's fault, speaking of true wealth. It's not the market's fault. It's not the economy's fault. It's not the political environment of the political system. It's not other people, ultimately. Now, don't get me wrong. In some cases, if somebody does something really bad to you, okay, it can be. But the vast majority of the time, you're responsible for your own outcomes. And even when something doesn't happen well, step back and look at it. Usually you'll say, well, maybe I shouldn't have made that decision. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And high performers tend to look internally and they're like, how can I change that outcome for next time? And let me go back and say, too, again, this isn't about perfection. It isn't about, one of the things, and I'll just give you a personal story. One of the things, because I'm a very social person, I tend to talk a lot. I tend to express myself a lot, and that gets me in trouble at times. Well, I don't blame someone if somebody gets angry at me for what I said. I generally don't blame them. I blame myself because I didn't communicate that properly. Maybe I was talking too much. Maybe I over communicated. And I'll tend to go internal and say, how can I make that better next time? So high performers, they don't blame. They tend to just adjust. And like I said, how can you do that better next time? How can you do it more efficiently next time? Habit number 4, focus on process over outcome. Don't be obsessed with the results daily. If things don't work out perfect, don't do that. Focus on executing the processes and the systems you set up. And again, those priorities and standards that you set for yourself. So a little bit explanation of this. I go back to that analogy or the numbers really I gave you of all the businesses that go out of business within the first year, 90%. Well, a lot of business owners and people that start businesses don't understand that results lag behavior, and sometimes by a lot. If you don't understand that and you just go by the results that you get daily or weekly, then you're going to be depressed all the time. And you're going to be like, oh, I can't believe how that outcome and that particular thing happened. So processes and strategies and things that you put in place in your life generally drive outcome much better. So here's a distinction. If you win the day, you win the future. So again, I go back to, and this is like high performance habits, kind of really strangely come back to what you do on a daily basis. It's that simple. And most people don't understand that. They think it's about these big, long processes and everything, when in reality, it's about what you do day to day, but you still have a longer term mindset and just execute daily on those standards that you set for yourself, and you'll have a great level of success. Habit number 5, energy management. So high performers don't manage time, don't just manage time, they manage their energy, focus, and recovery. So let me explain that. So I was at an event not long ago, in one very high-performing individual, ex-NFL football player, tops in the industry and teaching people how to perform at the highest level. And this guy's in great shape. He does the things he's supposed to do to keep himself where he is. He said the number two of the top things that you need to do in your life, and the two most important things, are sleep and breathing. Now, you always hear what you eat and exercise, right? No, he said sleep is the most important thing, is that recovery time to make sure that you've got control of your sleep the best you possibly can, and figure out a way to control, get on the right circadian rhythm, all of that figure out those things. And I'm not saying holier than thou, because I have, and I have my whole life struggled with sleep, but I've also tried to train myself to go to bed earlier, to get up earlier, do these things that kind of, in some ways, my body and my mind rejects. But I do those things anyway because I realize how important that sleep is to recovery. And the second thing he said was breathing. I'm not going to go into all of that, but he's talking about, like, meditation, relaxing, doing breath work, and that controls, that's actually oxygen levels coming into your body and how important that is for the regeneration of your cells in your body. So expanding on, again, sleep, exercise, making sure you do something physical daily if you can, but at least every couple days to get your body and your mind moving better, and that actually leads to mental clarity, which helps you make better decisions, help you have better discipline. All those things, again, it's kind of the concept of stacking. Those little things starts to stack on each other to make huge positive outcomes in your life. So performance is really impossible without great energy. So if you don't have good energy, you need to figure that out, and work on those 4 or 5 things that are the best for you, that can assure that you have great energy. So habit number 6, continuous improvement. Constant refinement, always evaluating performance. People that have lower standards and maybe have average results tend to not really, why am I improving? Why am I getting, we all, deep down, we all want to be better human beings. We want to contribute to our lives, our friends' lives, our families' lives. But there needs to be, you have to make a conscious effort, and there has to be refinement of that. If you're not thinking about those things and not in a state of constantly thinking about those things, I can throw some spiritual things in here. I tend to be a spiritual person, but I'm not putting that upon anybody. But I'm trying to a lot think about my spiritual life and how can I improve my spiritual life, because I tend to believe that will improve the rest of my life. So some methods to do this are putting things down on paper, journaling, and reviewing your wins, your losses. What are you learning? What are you not learning? Again, I think one of the things, and we have a lot of mental health issues in our country today. And again, we all go through ups and downs. We're all feel great at times and don't feel better at other times. But I think one of the epidemics is they're just stagnating. They don't want to learn more. They're not excited to learn more. So they tend to kind of, withdraw into themselves and into their own minds, and they're not expanding their minds and learning new things. So that's super important. Long-term thinking is habit number 7. Play the long game. Stop thinking so short-term. Don't think what's happening today or this week. Think about, where am I going to be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, even 10 years down the road? What goals do I have? What plans do I have? What is the vision of my future? This goes back to maybe writing things down. Some people put what they call vision boards together, where they'll take pictures of all the exciting things that they want to do in their lives, maybe the travel that they have or the things they want to obtain or the spiritual well-being that they want, and they put it up on a big board and it's in front of them all the time in a room or something like that. Delaying of gratification, that's huge, and that's really hard to do in our culture today because we're so wealthy, we have so much at our fingertips. In many ways, we're very lazy about a lot of things in the culture that we live in, and specifically in the United States of America, because we have almost everything. But what's amazing about it is even people that in our country that are, at the poverty level and not living that well are still living better than 90% of the rest of the world. But yet we all, and again, life is about levels. Well, I just did a podcast on different wealth levels. It's all about levels. But you can often get stuck in this thinking that I don't have enough. It's not good enough. And it's like this mental weight upon yourself that I should be at this level and I'm only at that level, when reality is that we should focus on maybe delaying gratification, staying at whatever level we're at and being okay with it for now, because we're striving for that next level. So an expansion of that is having an investing mindset and a wealth building mindset with Hilton True Wealth. And that's, kind of the Hilton True Wealth podcast. That's what we're about, is to expand your mindset and building a business, having a business building mindset, career growth. What is it you want to do? What's the next level that you want to get to? So the key takeaway is here: short-term sacrifice inevitably creates long-term success. And that's super important. Habit number 8 is designing their environment. High performance and high performers in general surround themselves with kind of a support system of success. The people around them, the people that they choose to be around with, have that great mindsets and tend to help propel them, talk to them, talk about success, talk about moving forward, talk about learning new things. And that includes, again, that I mentioned, people, your workspace environment. What are you consuming? What are you consuming the most? This is a great exercise. Today or tomorrow, just write down, what do you spend most of your time doing? And is that particular thing that you're spending most of your time at, is that keeping you stagnant, or is it pulling you back, or is it moving you forward? So just kind of take do an evaluation of that and see what your outcome is there. So your environment either upgrades you or it downgrades you. So take a look at your environment, take a look at the people around you, take a look at what you're surrounding yourself with, and see if you can make that evaluation. Am I doing too many things that will degrade me and not upgrade my the position that you're in? All right. So let me say, and again, I'm not trying to be, talking down to anybody or anything like that, because again, we're all at our own level and we're all struggling in our own ways. But let's talk about a high performer and people that are high performers and get a lot done and contribute a lot, as opposed to kind of more the average person that just kind of just lives life. So average individuals tend to be very reactive. They are motivated occasionally, and this is just a recap. They focus on short-term results or daily results. They blame circumstances on outside sources, people, things, their environment that they're in, all of that. And they tend to have, like I mentioned before, a short-term mindset. So the high performer, in contrast, is much more intentional, designs their life, has disciplines daily, maybe little disciplines that stack over time. They focus on having the proper processes in place. They take ownerships of outcomes, ownership of their own outcomes. And again, they tend to have a long-term mindset. So kind of just wrapping it up. So please understand that if you feel like you're being held back because you don't have enough talent, don't have enough opportunity, you're not in the right place, you're just not lucky, whatever, that's not right. It's really how you operate daily that's the most important thing. So you don't need, and even though I've talked about a lot of things here, you don't need more information. You don't need tons more information. You just need better execution. That's really what is the difference between kind of average performers and then high performers. So success is really simpler than you think it is. It's not easy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is easy. But because it's not easy, it's not that common. So if you just do and start stacking some smaller behaviors, discipline, then you can put yourself in a place where you're not performing like is the common person necessarily performs. You're at a higher level, you're getting a lot more done, and you're contributing a lot more to yourself, to all of those around you, to your family, to your workspace, and ultimately getting closer to the goals that everybody, most everybody has goals. And it's really about those it's not about that intentions that you have. It's about those habits that will ultimately determine your future. So you might want to audit those habits. We've talked about a lot of those things today. You might want to watch this and write those habits down that I mentioned, and audit those. Write them down. And build some structure, commit to consistency, maybe just in a couple things. You don't have to do this all in one day. Just commit to a few things. And then I think you'll see some just incredible results in your life and really be able to affect things and affect your future in a lot greater way. So the people that win, they're not more talented again. They're just more disciplined, more consistent, more intentional with how they operate. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Hilton True Wealth. If you want to learn more about topics relating to building your wealth, tax planning, cutting-edge tech, and family office services, we're here to help. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode, and give us a like or a review. And if you're curious to learn more about your wealth, tune in every Tuesday for new insights and special guests. If you found value in what you heard today, share it with someone who might benefit too. For more insights, resources, and to get a free copy of our book, Hilton Wealth, How to Invest Like an American Dynasty, visit us at hiltonwealth.com. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building your true wealth.